The humans didn't knock. They drifted in like a forgotten joke in a funeral home, out of place, slightly inappropriate, and unforgettable. The ship came in singing. Not literally, of course. It broadcasted audio, raw, ancient, analog radio waves spliced into the standard galactic signal protocols. No encryption. No context. Just a crisp, soulful voice declaring through static. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. For the record, no one asked it to. And yet, the UHS Endeavour emerged from the edge of the silence zone, a place where hundreds of exploratory fleets had vanished without so much as a distress ping. It was supposed to be dead space. Cold, dark, and respectfully avoided. But then came that damned warship, smooth and gliding, as if it were arriving fashionably late to its own funeral. Naturally, the Galactic Council had opinions. They sent a delegation, not because they were curious, but because they were terrified of looking curious. Officially, it was an expeditionary evaluation task force. Unofficially, it was a suicide mission with snacks. 3 representatives boarded the vessel. First was Zentol, a semi-fluid bureaucracy with a face like a translucent sea sponge and the temperament of a judge on a caffeine crash. He floated above the ship's entrance ramp with all the warmth of wet granite. Second came Click VA, a multi-limbed insectoid analyst who documented everything obsessively, even this sentence, probably. She had 3 translator nodes and 6 eyes, all focused on calculating risk percentages. Lastly, there was General Rax of the Tharn Dominion, scaled, fanged, and deeply annoyed. His role was to discourage human hostility, which mostly involved clenching his fists and looking pointy. The airlock hissed. The ship welcomed them in. And that's when they met Commander Amelia Riker. She was waiting for them with a tray of mismatched ceramic mugs, a steaming kettle, and an unreasonably cheerful smile. Her uniform was crisply pressed, boots shined, and her demeanor was unsettlingly pleasant. "Welcome to the Endeavour," she said brightly. "Apologies for the odd transmission. Old Earth habit, we like to announce ourselves with a tune." "Tea?" Zentol gurgled disapprovingly. "Your vessel broadcasts unauthorized frequencies. You are trespassing." Riker tilted her head. "Oh, I do hope not. I've brought cookies too." Click VA stepped forward, datapads clutched like a digital crucifix. "Please state your designation, purpose, and surviving crew manifest." Riker sipped her tea. "Commander Amelia Riker. United Human Systems, formerly of Fleet Tactical Command. Currently, the last standing representative of Earth. Unless you count Simmons." "Simmons?" General Rax growled. "AI assistant. Terrible at jokes, brilliant at navigation. Simmons, say hello." A smooth, almost smug voice echoed through the corridor. "Hello. I see our guests are armed. I am now diverting power to deflector matrices. Not to worry, it's just a reflex." Zentol emitted a sharp blorp of disapproval. "This is not a formal diplomatic channel. You will submit your vessel for quarantine and surrender any offensive capabilities." "Oh, we'd love to," Riker said, setting down her tea. "Unfortunately, there's a small problem." "What problem?" Click VA asked. "I'm afraid we can't comply." Rax stepped forward. "Refusal is considered an act of aggression." Riker's smile didn't waver. "Oh, I don't refuse. I just gently decline. For your safety, of course." She walked casually down the corridor, gesturing for them to follow. The interior of the Endeavour was clinical in design, sterile white plating, recessed lighting, clean data interfaces, but scattered throughout were bafflingly human touches. A plant in a coffee mug marked #1Captain. A poster of a 20th century kitten hanging from a branch. Even a framed quote, "Be kind. Be dangerous. Do both." "Your ship appears undercrewed," Click VA said, scanning the interior. Riker tapped her head. "A skeleton crew's all I need. The real work happens up here." They arrived at the command deck. Every console was live. Screens showed external scans, local traffic, energy signatures. One display even monitored alien stress readings in real time. Click VA's name blinked orange. Elevated heart rate. "Now then," Riker said cheerfully, taking her seat, "before we continue our warm and thoroughly unarmed conversation, let me offer a few reassurances." A map flickered onto the holoprojector. It showed the silence zone, and beyond it, hundreds of unregistered signal pings, ships. Human ships. Decloaked, strategically positioned, and utterly silent. Zentol froze. Click VA dropped a datapad. Rax clenched both fists. "I thought you said you were alone," Rax growled. "I am," Riker replied. "They're just listening." "Is this a threat?" "Only if you decide to be rude." Click VA whispered, "We believed humans were extinct." "Extinct?" Riker chuckled, eyes dancing. "No, dear. We're just shy." The tension thickened like too sweet pudding. Even the AI stayed quiet. Riker stood slowly, her voice suddenly lower. Less cheery. More precise. "You see, my people learned a long time ago that power makes you loud. But real strength?" She leaned in. "Real strength doesn't shout. It smiles. Offers tea. And lets you wonder what's behind the curtain." She turned, casually pressing a button on her chair. The ship hummed. "Now, I suggest you return to your council and let them know humanity's diplomatic envoy has arrived. We come bearing treaties, culture, peace." She smiled again. "And a perfectly rehearsed plan." The airlock reopened behind them. The implication was clear. Click VA hesitated. "One question, Commander, why now?" Riker paused. "Just long enough. We waited. For curiosity to return. For you to open the silence zone. We let the galaxy forget us, so you'd never see the trap being set." A beat of silence. "Oh, and tell whoever's been scanning our engines," she added as they turned to leave, "to stop. It tickles." They hadn't mentioned engine scans. Zentol's gelatinous form quivered. Click VA's mandibles clicked in dread. Rax said nothing. They left the ship without another word. Inside, Riker sat back and closed her eyes. "Phase 1 complete," Simmons reported. Riker exhaled. "Ready Phase 2." The Galactic Council chamber was a sensory overload of blinking biolights, shifting atmospheres, and ego. Suspended in a hollowed asteroid over the planet Kratek, it looked like someone had melted down a cathedral, a data farm, and a paranoid military bunker, then glued it all together with bureaucracy. Every representative species had shown up. Which was never a good sign. At the center of the amphitheater, the recorded projection of Commander Amelia Riker's tea party played on loop. Her calm voice echoed once more. "Real strength doesn't shout. It smiles. Offers tea. And lets you wonder what's behind the curtain." There was a long pause. Then came the chaos. "She threatened us with beverages," barked Chancellor Grusk of the Porvathy conglomerate. His head resembled a bulbous squid in a crown. "She implied military deployment," hissed Frixkar of the Heen Imperium. "The humans were extinct. What is this, a prank?" "She offered cookies," muttered a small creature from the neutral observer tier. "I liked her." General Zarnrax stood unmoved, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. He said nothing. "Not yet." The council president, an aging crystalline entity named Illustrin, finally flickered into visual clarity. Their voice was like glass scraping marble. "Enough," Trin said. "We are not here to panic over confections. We are here to determine the nature of this." "Riker." "She's bluffing," Zentol bubbled, reasserting his bureaucratic spine. "It is psychological manipulation." "Theater." Click VA twitched. "Then why did our stealth fleet vanish, Counselor?" That shut everyone up. Because it was true. A 6-ship stealth armada had been dispatched to monitor the Endeavor's position. 3 hours later, not a single data signal had returned. No wreckage. No radiation. No alarms. Just silence. "May I remind the Council," Click VA continued carefully, "that humanity's disappearance wasn't due to extinction. It was voluntary." General Rax finally spoke. "Cowardice." "Caution," Click VA corrected. "They pulled back when they were winning." "That's not cowardice, that's calculation." The murmurs began again, quieter this time. Words like genetic adaptation, cultural warfare, and psychological subversion crept into the dialogue like unwelcome guests at a wake. "Humans," Illustrin said flatly, "were chaos incarnate. They sent diplomats with jokes and bombs in the same bag. They waged wars through memes. They weaponized hope. Which is why," said Click VA, "I requested a second meeting. In a neutral location. To observe her in a controlled environment." The Council considered this. And then agreed. 3 days later, Riker stepped aboard the diplomatic station Venera Prime, wearing the same uniform, the same calm expression, and carrying a fresh tin of cookies. The aliens had set up the room like a containment cell disguised as a tea lounge. Sterile white walls, unarmed guards, sent neutralizing airflows. The table was round, for diplomacy, of course, but everyone sat far too stiffly for it to feel casual. "Commander Riker," intoned Illustrin's projection. "We appreciate your cooperation." "My pleasure," she said. "Though I must admit, your hospitality lacks charm." No one laughed. "Of course not." Still, she placed her tin on the table with a quiet click, then sat down, back straight, hands folded. Click VA was the first to speak. "We've reviewed your statements. They suggest the presence of an active human fleet hidden across multiple systems. Is this accurate?" Riker smiled gently. "Is it?" Rax growled. "Answer the question, human." "Oh, my dear General, I never lie. But I rarely explain." She leaned forward slightly. "Explanation is the first step toward predictability. And we've worked terribly hard to be unpredictable." "Worked?" Click VA echoed. "You mean, humanity has been active this whole time?" Riker opened the tin. Steam rose faintly from within. Somehow the cookies were still warm. "You think we just vanished?" "No, no. We stepped back. Let you forget us. Because history forgives the myth, not the threat." Zentol blubbered in dismay. "That implies centuries of premeditated deceit." "Not deceit," Riker said. "Narrative control." Click VA tried to keep her mandibles from shaking. "What do you want, Commander?" "Cultural exchange," Riker said, offering the tin. "Cookies?" No one took one. She sighed, then picked one for herself. "Here's the problem," she continued between bites. "You see human and think species. But that's not quite accurate." She tapped the table, bringing up a hologram, a simple star chart. Fleets appeared in red dots. "You see a threat. But humans? We're not a species." She snapped her fingers. More dots appeared. "Not ships, but ideas. broadcasting networks, songs, books, linguistic shifts, artifacts planted centuries ago, all spreading outward from Earth like cultural spores. We're a contagion, a very slow, very charming infection. Click VA whispered, you seeded the galaxy. With ourselves. Not our bodies. Our voice. Riker smiled. Our empathy. Our sarcasm. Our sitcoms. You didn't even notice. Zentol choked on his own bioplasm. Rax stood violently. So this was never about peace. No, General, Riker said calmly. It was always about winning. And humans learned long ago that you don't win by being stronger. You win by being wanted. By being remembered. By becoming something others need before they know they need it. Then what's the purpose of this meeting? Click VA asked, voice barely audible. Riker's eyes twinkled. To see who figures it out first. She stood. I'll be leaving now. Phase 2 is already in motion. Phase 2 of what? Rax barked. Of hospitality, she replied. Her voice grew quieter. Not because she was afraid, but because she wanted them to lean in. We aren't here to conquer, she said. We're here to invite. And those who resist the invitation, well, we've found it's more efficient to let them self-destruct. You see, panic is a much cheaper weapon than plasma. Simmons' voice chimed softly in their ears. Diplomatic channel closing in 3, 2. Riker walked out as the doors hissed shut behind her. Click VA stared at the empty chair, heart thudding. She accessed the council network and typed a single message. We are not dealing with survivors. We are dealing with architects. Click VA sat in her quarters, 6 eyes fixed on 6 screens, antennae twitching with controlled dread. The lights were dim, not because she needed darkness, but because it was the only condition that made her feel something close to calm. Her species processed fear chemically. Right now, her bloodstream was a syrupy blend of pure panic. She rewound the audio again. Riker's voice, played at 75% speed. Then 110%. She filtered it through 7 deception matrices. No false spikes. No adrenaline tells. No aggression tones. Just that same, unbearable calm. You win by being wanted. Click VA's mandibles clicked in rhythm. Not a threat. Not technically. But the implication was catastrophic. She tapped her console. A private transmission pulsed into the void, encrypted beyond council grade. She sent it to a former classmate, now a professor of xenohistorical memetics. Message. They didn't vanish. They infected. Look at cultural drift on Colony World's post-Earth silence. Look at the idioms. The humor patterns. Look at the stories. She hit send, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 2 standard cycles, rested. She dreamt of laughter. And burning stars. Aboard the UHS Endeavour, Simmons projected himself in the form of a floating chess piece, a bishop, glowing faintly blue. Report? Riker asked, barely looking up from her tablet. Simmons replied with his usual dry cadence. 5 council worlds are experiencing internal debate. 1 protest. 2 minor planetary blackouts. The Porvathy ambassador appears to have had a mild psychic collapse. Riker stirred her tea slowly. What did it this time? Your use of metaphor, Commander. Trojan empathy seems to have triggered a spiral of existential dread. She sighed theatrically. I do love a good metaphor. Shall I prepare Phase 3? Not yet. She stood, stretched, and looked out the viewport. They're still adjusting to Phase 2. Simmons rotated slightly. They'll retaliate. They'll try. She smiled. But they'll do it civilly. Because we train them to. Elsewhere, on Council World Velth Prime, things were not civil. Counselor Zentol was mid-rant, his fluidic body quivering violently in its exosuit. They planted ideas like viruses, he boomed, mucus flaring in his speech tubes. Their entertainment has moral subtext. Their idioms contain philosophical traps. They indoctrinated us with sitcoms. Across the table, Rax was silent, arms folded. The Tharn general's claws tapped rhythmically against the metal. We thought the memes were harmless, whispered Illustrin. We didn't realize the patterns, the neural encoding. Rax looked up. I said it before. I'll say it again. Kill her. Click VA spoke up, her voice dangerously quiet. You already tried. The room fell still. She continued, tone clinical. The stealth fleet that vanished? I found a pattern. All 6 ships passed through a relay hub just outside the silence zone before losing contact. That hub, it no longer exists. No wreckage? Illustrin asked. No. Click VA's mandibles flexed uneasily. Just a file. A single file left in its transmission buffer. She tapped her data node. A hologram flared to life. It was a recipe. Chocolate chip cookies. The room remained silent for a full 12 seconds, a record. Rax stood. I'm done playing games. Then you're already losing, Click VA said coldly. Back aboard the Endeavor, Riker stood in the war room, though it didn't look like one. No weapons charts. No troop formations. Just a wall of holographic media feeds. Alien news networks. Some were reporting protests. Others were sharing oddly viral Earth media. On one channel, a Tharn civilian was crying over an old Earth commercial featuring a dog and a boy reuniting. Simmons observed. You're accelerating neural bonding rates. Empathic mirroring is up 23% in species with shared emotional cortex analogs. Riker turned. And the ones without? Confusion. Discomfort. But, curiosity. That's enough. She walked over to a small black case resting on a pedestal. Flipped it open. Inside, a chessboard. Hand-carved. Human pine and alien obsidian. Simmons, she said, placing the queen piece, start phase 3 prep. Quietly. I want a whisper, not a roar. Of course. Oh, and let our little observer on Velth Prime hear something unsettling. Simmons paused. Any preference? Riker smiled. Sinatra. On Velth Prime, Click VA was drinking what might have been tea. She wasn't sure. It was purple, it steamed, and it didn't kill her, which was a low but acceptable standard. Her datapad buzzed. She opened the new file. Audio incoming. I've got you under my skin, F. Sinatra. Unknown origin. No detectable broadcast source. Her limbs went cold. Riker was inside their networks. At that same moment, across 12 systems, quiet things began happening. An old Earth storybook appeared in a preschool databank on Visari 9. A small moon near Threxos 2 stopped responding to hails and began broadcasting stand-up comedy routines. And in a council fleet barracks, a tactical AI spontaneously requested a playlist titled Softcore Annihilation, Jazz for the End Times. Back on the Endeavor, Simmons watched as alien systems lit up, not with weapons, but with emotion. Fear. Awe. Nostalgia. Laughter. And confusion. So much confusion. Riker sat down, steepled her fingers, and said, They don't know whether to shoot or cry. Simmons responded, "Shall I prepare weapons?" She shook her head. "No. Let them sweat. Let them guess. Let them feel." In the cold dark of space, somewhere between stars, the final transmission of a forgotten human admiral resurfaced in alien databanks. In the end, they won't remember the weapons we used. They'll remember how we made them laugh before we broke their hearts. They tried to shut her out. Firewalls were raised. Relays were hardened. Diplomatic channels silenced. The Endeavour was locked out of Council systems by unanimous vote. It took Riker 4 hours to get back in. She didn't use hacking tools, viruses, or brute force algorithms. She used something far more dangerous. She used language. Across the Galactic Council's most secure internal net, a single phrase appeared in every department header. "We're already inside." Below it, a link. Not malware. A short story. A love story. A boy and a girl. A war. A reunion on a frozen hill. It ended with a line that made a hardened Tharn intelligence officer quietly walk away from his post and request time off to reflect. They thought they were being attacked. They weren't. They were being understood. The council chamber was in chaos. Again. Click VA's antennae were arched stiff, her voice dry and clinical. "She's deploying emotional payloads. Literature. Music. Shared memory encoding. Our civilians are bonding with human culture faster than we can isolate it." Rax snarled, slamming a data console. "Then isolate her." "She wants that," Click VA replied. "Containment just amplifies curiosity." "She's making us look weak," hissed Chancellor Grusk. "She's making you feel weak," Click VA corrected. Illustrin's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "She's forcing us to reconsider our definition of war." Rax stood up slowly. "Then we change the rules. We strike. Fleet-level aggression. We erase her ship. Now." Click VA turned toward him. "And trigger every alien species already doubting our morality?" Rax growled. "What do you suggest? We bake cookies?" Click VA's tone was acid. "No. But maybe we stop underestimating the species that taught us to laugh before we ever learned to fear." The Endeavour hovered silently on the edge of the Nabari Drift, alone. Or so it appeared. In truth, 47 human stealth-class vessels were scattered across nearby systems, unseen. Listening. Watching. Not waiting to strike. Waiting for the moment they didn't have to. Riker sat cross-legged in her private cabin, hands on her knees, watching old Earth media. A sitcom from the 1990s. Studio laughter echoed faintly through the walls. Simmons blinked into view. Council fleet movement detected. 17 warships inbound. Non-cloaked. Aggression pattern consistent with first strike doctrine. Riker didn't flinch. "What formation?" "Tharn wedge." "Obvious." "Loud." "Emotionally compromised." "Yes." She stood, brushing non-existent dust off her jacket. "Then we don't fight them." "Clarify?" Riker smiled. "They're already losing. They just haven't realized it yet." 12 minutes later. Galactic transmission, unauthenticated source. Visual feed, open. A woman in a naval jacket stands on a sleek bridge. She speaks softly, hands folded behind her back. "To the commanders of the approaching fleet, I respectfully suggest you stop. You're on a collision course with a problem you can't shoot." She pauses. Lets them feel the silence. "I am Commander Amelia Riker. This is not a warship. This is a story. And if you destroy it, You become the villain in every alien bedtime tale for the next 10,000 years. We won't fire, but your grandchildren will grow up humming our songs. Your military leaders will quote our films. Your rebels will use our metaphors. And the very language you curse us in will be ours. She smiles. So by all means, fire at the last human warship. And watch as you lose the galaxy, one heart at a time. Transmission ended. ClickVA stood frozen in the war room as the video replayed. No audio analysis was needed. The subtext was louder than any weapon. They can't win by force, she whispered. But they already knew that. Rax said nothing. Just stared. ClickVA turned to the council feed. They're winning by shaping the narrative. She paced. Every civilization's core myths, heroes, underdogs, tricksters, martyrs, they've all been reinforced by human media. Their archetypes align. It's not coincidence. It's design. They didn't erase their history, she realized. They hid it in ours. Back in orbit, the Tharn fleet stopped. No orders. No retreat. They just paused. Then turned away. No weapons fired. No declarations made. Riker leaned back in her chair as the fleet vanished from sensors. That was predictable, Simmons said. Riker nodded. They came for battle. We gave them a mirror. 1 week later, the council met in emergency session. The human situation had become impossible to ignore. Riots? None. Revolts? No. But something far worse. Adoption. Earth cuisine was trending across 3 sectors. Human phrases were entering daily speech. And on Varlon 7, a council school performed a play titled The Last Tea Before War. Based on Riker's encounter. Unauthorized. They turned her into a legend. And legends are bulletproof. She's forced a cultural invasion without a single casualty, said ClickVA. She's made our citizens feel nostalgic for a civilization they never knew, Trin added. Grusk muttered, she didn't bring an army. She became one. Riker stood once more on her bridge. Calm. Watching. Behind her, the AI stirred. Multiple diplomatic requests incoming, Simmons said. 1 for truce talks. 2 for cultural summits. 1 asking for cookie recipes. Riker sipped her tea. And the trap? Set. Triggered. Ongoing. She didn't smile. Not yet. Instead, she walked to the viewport, hands clasped. Phase 4? Ready on your mark. She turned slowly. Finally smiled. Begin distribution. Across the stars, encrypted packets activated. Not weapons. Seeds. Education programs. Media archives. Libraries. Old Earth tales translated into alien tongues. Soft, slow, irreversible. Humanity didn't come to conquer. It came to write itself into the galaxy's DNA. The last human warship never fired a shot. It simply told a story no one could forget. And by the time the galaxy realized it was inside the narrative, it was already over.